Okay, so you know how we're all kind of obsessed with getting rid of belly fat?
Like it's a universal struggle, right?
Totally. And it feels like everywhere you turn, there's a new miracle solution or a secret trick. But like, honestly, it just ends up being a confusing mess.
Yeah, you get so bombarded with information, it's hard to even know where to start.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're going to try to cut through all that clutter and really get to the bottom of what actually works when it comes to losing belly fat.
Sounds like a plan.
So we've been digging into this awesome YouTube video by Paul Revelia. He's a lifetime natural bodybuilder and a coach, and he's got like years of experience helping people achieve some pretty incredible transformation.
Yeah, he seems to really know his stuff.
Oh, for sure. And right off the bat, what I love about Paul's approach is that he doesn't get bogged down in these like trendy, quick fix gimmicks. He goes straight to the fundamentals, the foundational stuff that actually matters.
I think that's so important because with so much information out there, it's easy to get sidetracked.
And one of the first things he does is break down the different types of fat we have in our bodies. I mean, it's not just one big blob of fat, right? He talked about subcutaneous fat, and then there's visceral fat.
Right. Subcutaneous is the kind of fat we can like pinch the stuff right under our skin.
Yeah, and he mentions it's the fat that when you get lean enough, you start to see those muscle separations and definitions.
Exactly. It's more superficial, you know. But the kind of fat that he really highlights as being a bit more concerning is visceral fat.
Ah, yeah, that sneaky kind.
Yeah, because it's deeper down, right? Like beneath your abdominal wall, and it's actually wrapped around your organs.
Whoa, that sounds a little intense.
Yeah, and Paul points out that because of where it's located, it can mess with your hormones more directly. Like it has a bigger impact on your hormonal systems.
Okay, so not just an aesthetic concern.
Right, exactly. And here's the kicker. You can't even see it.
Oh, that's so tricky, right? Like, if we can't see it, how do we know if we have it? And more importantly, how do we get rid of it?
Well, according to Paul, tackling visceral fat comes down to the same basic principle as losing any other kind of fat.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the big secret?
Drum roll, please. There's no such thing as a belly fat diet.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously, any diet that works, whether it's keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, whatever, it works because it ultimately creates what we call a calorie deficit.
You mean?
Meaning you're burning more calories than you're consuming. That's it. That's the golden rule of fat loss.
I gotta say, that's actually kind of refreshing to hear, because you're constantly bombarded with these messages about, like, eat this one food to blast belly fat, or, like, this one weird trick to shrink your waistline.
Yeah, it's all marketing hype, really. Paul's approach is much more grounded and, sustainable. In fact, he actually talks about how overly restrictive diets can sometimes backfire.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he even mentions orthorexia, which is like this unhealthy obsession with eating only pure or perfect foods. And he points out that these super rigid diets can sometimes lead to disordered eating patterns.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, you might lose weight initially, but if you can't maintain that lifestyle, you're just going to end up yo-yoing back and forth, right?
Absolutely. And that's not healthy,
Yeah.
physically or mentally.
Yeah.
What Paul advocates for is finding a way to eat that you can actually enjoy and stick with long term.
Totally. It's about creating healthy habits, not punishing yourself. So if we're ditching the belly fat diet myth, how do we actually create this calorie deficit thing?
All right, what's actually pretty straightforward. A calorie deficit simply means you're burning more energy than you're taking in.
Calories out got to be greater than calories in.
Exactly. And that's how your body starts tapping into its fat stores for energy, including that pesky visceral fat.
Okay, I think I'm getting this. But there's this one thing I've always been confused about. You know how people talk about insulin spikes and how they supposedly stop you from burning fat?
Yeah, that's a common misconception. So here's the deal. Our bodies are constantly switching between burning and storing fat throughout the day, right? It's like a continuous cycle. And while it's true that insulin plays a role in fat storage, what really matters for long-term fat loss is your overall calorie balance over a longer period of time. So one little insulin spike here and there isn't going to derail your progress if you're consistently in a calorie deficit. It's about the big picture, not the tiny details.
That makes so much more sense.
Glad to hear it.
So I'm sure some people listening are like, all right, I'm sold on this calorie deficit thing, but how many calories should I actually be aiming for?
Well, Paul actually has a super helpful calculator on his website, physique.com/calculator. You plug in some basic info like your age, weight, activity level, and it'll give you a ballpark estimate of your daily calorie needs.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great starting point. But he also emphasizes that it's just that, a starting point. If you're consistently not losing weight, then you might need to adjust your calorie intake further. It's
Right.
all about finding what works for your unique body and metabolism.
So let's say we're consistently hitting that calorie deficit, awesome. But where does the fat actually come off first?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question. Paul uses a really cool analogy to explain this. He compares it to like unrolling a paper towel roll.
I love this analogy.
Me too. It's so visual, right?
Yeah.
So imagine that paper towel roll represents your body fat. You got fat stored all over, and the order in which you lose it from different areas, like your face, your legs, your arms, it's mostly determined by your genetics.
So it's not like you can target specific areas, like just your belly fat.
Unfortunately not. It's more like you lose from the outer layers of the paper towel roll first, then work your way inwards.
And for a lot of people, that stubborn belly fat, the love handles, those are like those inner layers. You kind of have to be patient and lose fat from other areas before you see significant changes there.
Exactly. And that's why it's so frustrating for so many people. They're working hard, they're in a calorie deficit, but they don't see the changes where they want to see them right away.
So it's a reminder to trust the process and be consistent. Speaking of that stubborn belly fat, Paul also talks about this connection between higher levels of that hidden visceral fat and people who are in more obese weight ranges or at risk of obesity.
Right, that's a crucial point. If you're already relatively lean, visceral fat probably isn't a huge concern. But as you start to lose overall body fat, your visceral fat levels will naturally come down too.
And that's a good thing.
Oh, definitely. Paul mentions some of the benefits, like improvements in your hormone balance and even better sleep quality.
I'm all about that better sleep.
Yeah.
So we know that higher visceral fat is often linked to higher overall body fat. But without fancy body scans, how can someone at home get a sense of their visceral fat levels?
Well, Paul mentions this really simple indicator that he's found to be pretty useful. It's based on the ratio of your waist measurement to your height.
Okay, tell me more.
So basically, if your waist circumference, whether you measure it in inches or centimeters, is greater than half of your height, it could be a sign that you might have higher levels of visceral fat.
Interesting. Makes sense, right? The bigger your waist in relation to your height, the more likely you are to be carrying more fat around your midsection.
Right. And Paul even gives his own example. His waist measurement is well below half his height, which, aligns with his physique. He's got those visible abs and everything. And he credits that to his consistent and sustainable lifestyle choices.
And let's not forget, he's not some genetic freak, right? He actually shares this pretty impressive transformation story. He shows pictures of himself from when he was around 250 pounds, and now he competes in bodybuilding at a super low body fat percentage.
Yeah, I remember those pictures. It's inspiring to see that kind of transformation. It proves that real significant change is possible for anyone.
Totally agree. So while that consistent calorie deficit is like the foundation, the non-negotiable, Paul also gives some really solid actionable tips that can help you along the way.
Yeah, he doesn't just leave you hanging with the theory. He gives you the tools to actually implement it.
Exactly. So first up, he emphasizes something that's super accessible to everyone: walking.
Simple but effective, right?
Totally. He recommends aiming for a brisk 30-minute walk each day. And he's not saying you have to go all out, super intense right from the start.
Nope, it's about building consistency first and foremost. Just get moving, get that daily walk in.
Love it. And his second tip focuses on protein intake. He suggests trying to eat a daily amount of protein in grams that's roughly equal to your target body weight.
So if your goal weight is 150 pounds, you'd aim for around 150 grams of protein per day.
Makes sense. Protein is key for building and maintaining lean muscle, which not only helps you look more toned, but also boosts your metabolism and burns more calories even when you're at rest.
Plus, protein helps you feel full and satisfied, which can be a huge help when you're trying to manage your calorie intake.
Definitely. And his third piece of advice is all about finding a calorie range that feels sustainable for you and building healthy habits around it. It's not about depriving yourself or following some crazy restrictive diet.
It's about making gradual, manageable changes that you can stick with long term.
I think that's key because so many people fall into that trap of like, I'm going to go all in, restrict everything, and lose weight fast. But then it's not sustainable and they end up right back where they started.
It's a recipe for burnout and frustration. And Paul also touches upon the benefits of combining different types of exercise.
Yeah, he's a big advocate for a balanced approach, right?
Totally. He mentions research that shows combining cardio, like that daily brisk walk, with some resistance training, even just a couple of times a week, can be more effective for fat loss than doing either one alone.
So you get the calorie-burning benefits of cardio, plus you're building muscle with resistance training, which, as we said, helps with your metabolism and overall body composition.
Exactly. It's a win-win. And all of this ties into his big overarching message, which is all about sustainability. Losing belly fat and keeping it off for good isn't about finding some quick fix or magic solution. It's about making lasting lifestyle changes that you can actually maintain over time.
And he walks the walk, right? Like, he's super consistent with his own training and nutrition. He pays attention to his macros. He exercises regularly. But he also doesn't go to extremes. No crazy diets, no spending hours in the gym every day.
Yeah, he finds that balance between being committed and also enjoying life.
And I think that's such a powerful message for people. You don't have to make yourself miserable to achieve your fitness goal.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot, that sustainable approach that allows you to make progress without feeling constantly deprived or restricted.
So to sum it all up, losing belly fat is basically a part of overall fat loss, and that boils down to consistently being in a calorie deficit.
Yep. Calories out have got to be greater than calories in. And the order in which you lose fat from different areas of your body,
Yeah.
well, that's largely up to your genetics. So patience is key, especially when it comes to that stubborn belly fat.
Right. We also learned that higher levels of that hidden visceral fat are often linked to higher overall body fat percentages. So as you get leaner, your visceral fat will naturally decrease, which is great news for your health.
Totally. And to get there, remember those key takeaways.
Mm.
Consistent movement, whether it's walking or something else you enjoy. Make sure you're eating enough protein to support your muscles and keep you feeling full.
Don't forget about finding that sustainable calorie range and making it a part of your lifestyle, not just a temporary thing. And of course, combine some cardio with resistance training for that extra fat-burning boost.
And that brings us to a little challenge for you, the listener. Think about your current daily habits and ask yourself, what's one small sustainable change I can make starting today?
It doesn't have to be anything drastic. It could be as simple as adding a 15-minute walk to your routine or swapping out a sugary drink for water.
The point is, those small, consistent actions add up over time and lead to the most significant, lasting results.
Absolutely. So take those principles we've discussed today and see how you can apply them to your own journey. Genetics might play a role, but taking consistent, sustainable action is what will ultimately help you reach your goals and feel your best.
You've got this.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the truth about belly fat, inspired by the insights from Paul Revelia. Hope you found this helpful. Until next time, keep those calories in check and those steps adding up.